Right. Ooh. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Residential Code Review Committee meeting and public workshop, and we're calling the meeting to order. And Jeff, if we could, let's start off with the roll call.
Jeff Marks.
Alex Robinette.
Dave Bench.
Tom Farrell.
Duke Garwood.
And Ryan Clinton is on our Zoom meeting deal.
I am.
So-
Hey,
Hello,
Ryan.
everyone.
Hey, Ryan.
So we have a quorum, and the meeting is called to order. Public comments, do we have any of our citizens that would like to address us on an item not on the agenda, or on any agenda if you want to, in this case? Yes, ma'am. If you would stand up here and just tell us who you are.
Deborah Arno. I live at 304 Inwood.
Thank you, Deborah.
I would love to see, I don't know if this is discussed, but I would love to see a more stringent tree ordinance
Okay,
that
tree ordinance.
that is more meaningful, because the lot next to me has one tree remaining. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Deborah. Would anybody else like to address the council? Very good. On our consent agenda, we have our discussion and possible action on the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 meeting. And I assume and we'll do the same thing with before. If we want to approve these, if somebody wants to come back and make an amendment to it later on, we can do that, if you haven't had a chance to review them yet. So do I have a motion to accept these minutes?
I motion to accept them.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those minutes are, and Ryan, I'm trying to make sure that if you, you'll have to raise your hand so we can see you, I guess, on that.
Oh, I will let you know if I have any objection.
There we go. Good. One thing that I want to just kind of start this, and I'm going to take one thing out of order. I'm going to take item number 4 on our regular agenda before I take item number 3, and that is our opening comments from the committee, which I think we probably should do that first. And I just have 2 that I'd like to go for make sure the record understands this. All the work that we've done here is, none of this is has been finalized or voted on by our committee. This is just to help people visualize what some of the issues are that we have. None of it is our recommendation to our citizens. We are waiting for our citizens to tell us, our residents to tell us what they want to see changed, if anything, and then we'll try to put that down for as our report progresses on this. We've got some really good experts that know a lot about this, and so we can get their input as we go through this. But I want to emphasize that we're not taking a position on anything yet. This is just strictly a thought-provoking process that we want to get everybody involved that we can get to do it. The second thing I want to bring up is, I know there's been a lot of concerns about if the ordinances change, how does that affect our property values from a standpoint of being able to being in compliance with the rules. And the one thing I want to make sure everybody knows is our rules, our ordinances change a lot of times. They change almost every year. Each council changes ordinances for many years. This has changed. Every year we will accept the Universal Building Code and the changes that are in the Universal Building Code, which becomes part of our code. So either deliberately or inadvertently, we make changes to our code all the times. And the only times that would come into play is if you actually demolish your house 50%, and I think that really meant to be 50% or more, but it says 50%. And then, but if you have a fire or damage or something, your grandfather, you get to replace on that. So that's, I just want to make sure, I know that several people have sent us emails on that, and I just wanted to address it. I can't tell you how many, I don't know that we have any houses in Rollingwood that are in full compliance at all the time. So I'm not sure that that's something, I think it's a concern that we have to address, but I think that we probably need to put that in the proper perspective on that. That's my comments. Duke, do you have any that you'd like to make?
No.
David?
The only thing is that, you know, our intention here this evening, of course, is, as Tom says, gather input from the public, which was the primary objective, or the first thing that was actually stated in our charter whenever we were formed. And we've been working on the edges of a number of different things, but it's really your input that is going to shape the direction that we're going here. So we're excited about being here, and we've been working hard at trying to pull something together to get to stimulate public input, and I hope we get a bowl full. So,
Alex?
I don't really have any comments.
Jeff?
I'm just here to take some notes.
There you go.
So I got my laptop
Good
up.
position to be on that. And Ryan?
Sure. I would just like to echo that. Well, first of all, thank you for, I can't see who's all there, but thank you all for being here, because I know you're all taking the time out of your days to be here, so we greatly appreciate it. And then secondly, just to reiterate, that the only thing that speaks for the commission is the vote of the commission, the majority vote of the commission. Until that, nothing speaks for the commission. So don't worry if you've heard something, you've heard a rumor, you've heard anything, don't worry about that. We are here to listen. That's the whole purpose of this, and I think everybody on the commission is dedicated to being, for today's meeting, the sole purpose of it is to hear and not talk. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go back to item number 3, which is our emails and letters, and I just want to have a motion to adopt those for our minutes that we put in for this, just as a separate item, because we have quite a few. Jeff, I think we've got 100 comments, or better than 100 we've gotten so far, which I'm always disappointed we don't get 1,300, but you know, that's okay. You get what you get, and it's we're not done yet, is all I can say. So maybe we can stir the pot and get some more that come out on that. So if I could get a motion just to accept these as part of our process that we go through on that. So if I could-
I motion that we take the emails that we've received so far and incorporate those in with the minutes and
Right.
our progress.
Excellent.
Second it.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Ryan's got an aye, so we are good to go on that.
Good.
So the public workshop, I'd like to, first of all, I'd like to thank
Alex.
I know Alex and Dave and Jeff, I know y'all worked on this, and thank y'all so much for doing this. I mean, this is above and beyond what I had anticipated. I had anticipated these little, I don't know what I anticipated, to tell you the truth, but not this. Anyway, and you know, this is so informative, and I hope we have this here to let residents that are not here today be able to know that this is here. I'll do my best to make sure I try to get it in the local paper, but that hadn't worked well so far. That's all I can say. I'm very disappointed in that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn this kind of over to David, if you would
Sure.
mind just taking us through
Okay.
what we have. And this is an open meeting, so anybody that has a question or wants to address it, it's not formal, just say it out. The only thing I would ask is we try to keep minutes, so to help our staff figure out what everybody's saying, our microphones are not the best. So if you would, just be sure that you're at or near a microphone when you do that. I think it would be very helpful for us to have, so we could make sure we keep a good record of that. David?
Okay, so what we're trying to do here today is have a poster session that gives you, the public, an opportunity to at least see some of the things we're talking about, to see some of the comments that we have gotten from emails and other public comments, to see where we've been before, because this is not the first time this rodeo is run. And again, just more or less to stimulate your thinking, your ideas about what kind of things need to be changed, if anything, in the codes. So, starting over there, we're going to put all these posters up higher on the benches here, or on these desks here. We just put them down low so that you could see us while we're sitting here. But what you have over there at your far left is comments that came in response to the last comprehensive review that was conducted, 2 years ago. Alex kind of dug deep into what the comments were from that survey that was conducted, and found 2 full page, it's actually small print pages of things. And every one of those comments is pertinent today. And none of them has really been addressed. So I invite you to look at that. Then we have our charter here, what it is that, why we're here, what was the idea of City Council approving our existence and putting us to work, selecting this group of people to work on these various things. I think down here in the bottom, you'll find that there is an area. It turns out, as I said, this isn't the first rodeo. In 2004, there was another comprehensive review of the code that had happened, which, boy, it amazed me. And Shanti was good enough to provide some of the output from that committee. And it is amazingly similar to what it is we're talking about today. Frankly, I have heard people say in the past, the not too distant past, if there's such a concern about this, after the sewage went in, after the city sewers went in, why didn't someone do something about the code then? Certainly they must have seen in advance that changing over to the city sewer system would open up Rowanwood to a whole lot of development. Why didn't someone do something about it? Well, in fact, someone was actually trying to do something about it, or at least reviewing it, and a number of recommendations were made to City Council back then in 2004, and not one of them passed. So here we are. What else do we have here? Jeff has done an awful lot of work in researching, what's it called? Floor area ratios. Thank you. And it turns out that a number of cities take into account the total square footage of a house and compare it against the piece of property that they sit on, and establish certain ratios that enable that kind of provide a guidance as to how large a home can be built. One of the things we are hearing about in the emails and elsewhere are the overwhelming nature of some of the houses that are being put on these lots. And we don't know quite yet what to do about that. We still are looking for your input on that. But floor area ratio is one of the possible tools that could be used to help sort things out a little bit. And it is a curious thing, and I know that he had generated this graph, I think with the help of AI, that shows, in fact, how the houses in Rowanwood are growing. The number of houses are growing year by year, and it seems to be picking up. It seems to be accelerating. So then we've had some discussion around, people were mentioning trees and they're disappearing from the yards.
If you'd like, you can.
Well, if I do that, then you can't hear me.
Oh.
Or if it won't get recorded. Or maybe I just yell out.
Here.
You know, but yeah, you know, it seems like building height has been my life for the past year. Folks started to complain about some particular houses nearly a year ago, or maybe even more. And was our code really appropriate the way it was written right now? And that's kind of how a lot of this all started, was building height. So we have some ideas about what we're thinking about building height. We also have some questions that we think might want to go on to the survey, and so on. Like Tom says, we got a bunch of emails from residents, and we did some extractions from those emails and just kind of put them on these boards. Some of them are pretty energetic. Yeah, how you doing there?
Get my squats in.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. So, and then, as I said, tree canopies being considered. Some folks are starting to talk about light ordinances, about dark sky and so on. We hadn't really heard too much about that before, but now it's starting to become part of our conversation. Right from the very beginning, we had charges to take care of two sets of issues, one of them having to do with construction site management and the other dealing with our building ordinances. Here in construction site management, these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about, how construction sites ought to be managed, what the time of day is that could be done, so on. How much noise is allowed to be made, how do we enforce these things. And then finally, and this is really the reason we're here, folks, the reason we're here is because we're trying to generate survey questions. We plan to put out a survey here soon. And we want to make sure that we're covering everything that needs to be covered. These are just examples of the kinds of things. Alex and I came up with these ideas about, what you might want to know as a survey. Is Rolling Wood a good place to retire? Do you plan to retire here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good place. It's a good place to retire. I'm going to ask you, why is that? Why is it a good place?
You really want to know?
Put it down. Write it down.
I'm not going to write down anything. The comment box. Okay. The comment box.
Oh yeah. Oh, and one last thing before we get on that. One last thing is that your comments, we'd like to capture them on paper, and we have a comment box that we have put over here.
Dave, it's by the
Oh, I
front
would put
door.
it out there just in case.
Oh,
you
okay, it's
missed
out
it.
there, okay. So we have these sheets of paper, slips of paper, that we would like you to come up with questions, survey questions, comments, concerns, any issues that we haven't covered here, anything you've got to say you think we ought to know about, please do jot it down, stick it in the box, we'll look at them later, it'll get into the minutes. Okay, so, Roy, something,
No,
please.
I thought you were asking.
I'm sorry.
Well, because I'm already retired here. It'll be 40 years since we moved here next year. So I'm retired and I love it. And there's nothing to not like about Rolling Wood because the people make Rolling Wood special. Now, we've had a lot of change recently, and there are some irate neighbors for reasons that you already pointed out, because they feel their property doesn't have the privacy that they had for all these years, decades. And so their property values probably will be lower on the scale of what they thought they might have by the time they want to retire and encash and leave and find a smaller place. So some of us are not going to go anywhere because we can't afford to leave, but we also don't want to leave, okay? We need it to be, nobody can say change won't happen. Change is the nature of life and nature of things. But if we can help people who have been here for a long time and help the people who are coming in to have equal property rights. When I say property rights, I mean it in the simplest of terms, okay? To be able to enjoy their property the way they want to. And privacy is a big issue, and you all probably have heard about that. And drainage, to me, I wrote an email and sent it out to a whole bunch of people, probably 100 people, asking them to send in their comments. Maybe some of them have already done so. But to me, I said, I'm going to talk to you all about two issues. One is height, building height, and the second is drainage. And the reason I said that was, we have always thought about in real estate, location, location, location. I'm not a real estate agent, but I can foresee a day when it'll be drainage, drainage, drainage. Honestly, because if we don't address some of the issues that contribute to the larger homes or the way they are located on the lots, then down the road we are going to have drainage issues. I was just showing Jeff a map from 2002 done by an engineering company called MEC, and they have outlined where the drainage issues are back in that day. And I would take a stab at thinking that now there are a lot more, and we are spending $2 million at Nixon and Pleasant. It was already predicted in 2002 that there would be a problem there. And then we are going to spend another million or million, whatever, right? On Hubbard Circle and it's a Pickwick, right? Where's that money going to come from? From you and me, our tax money. We happen to have this extra money, which I don't want to call it extra because it was already borrowed, and so we are using that. But we have to address drainage, otherwise we're just going to be having a lot of problems. And so all of these issues that y'all are talking about, I think eventually lead to how does it impact our drainage. So. What?
Completely. And I think I want to underscore what she has said in terms of. Sandy Keller, I live at 307 Inwood. I think you really made the point that this is not about aesthetics. Aesthetics is a component of this, but also underlying that is the very functional nature of the way we build impacts the way we drain our streets and drain our lots. And we don't have a municipal stormwater sewer system. We don't have a drainage system for stormwater. And so these building changes that we're seeing now that we don't have septic systems allows people to build fairly substantial sized homes. And it allows, even with the TECQ efforts to minimize runoff, it still causes disruptions. And if you live at the lower end of a fairly large drainage field, you are going to be experiencing problems of one sort or another, especially as the building sizes are increased universally around the city. That's all. I just want to say she's talking about not just aesthetics, but functionality, and that's really what all of this is about.
Alex, do you have anything more to say about these questions?
I came to listen. We've all been talking about floor area ratios, building height. I would love some specifics. You said building height was an issue for you, but what does that look like to you? Do you have some suggestions or thoughts on that? Or sorry to make you get back up.
I didn't prepare. I was also coming to listen, but I wanted to share. Sorry. Okay, so I talk to lots of neighbors, as I'm prone to do. Everybody knows that. Oops. Yeah. And I noticed things, and I found that people used to be, oh, what can I do about it? Somebody, that's their property, their building, whatever. But now I'm hearing people are like, how could the city let that happen? I cannot spend my time in privacy in my backyard. I can't even go to the shower without thinking somebody can look into my bathroom. I mean, really, that is exactly the conversation that people are talking about. in fact, there are some houses being built on Timberline right now, and there are some older homes where people are renting, or even living there. And this woman just talked to me and said, I really cannot, go have a shower without thinking somebody is looking down on my bathroom. Okay? We can't do that. I mean, it doesn't mean somebody cannot have a large home, but sometimes people have been very accommodating. They don't put any windows on the side where they have a tall wall. I mean, that is a consideration. And many times, if the neighbor doesn't know what kind of a building is coming next to them, regardless of that notice that they get, 250 feet, whatever, or they have no opportunity to come in and say something, or even if they say it, the builder has already, and to a large extent, don't get me wrong, they suspect homes that are causing a lot of concern. Because a lot of the residents who want to live there for 10, 15, 20 years tend to build really aesthetically pleasing to themselves, but also not intervening in people's enjoyment of their neighbors. They want to be neighbors and good neighbors. So that's what I mean by height. And the second thing about height is, somebody else may tell you this, whenever the multiplying factor for the amount of water that drains off, there's a huge number. Sarah Hudson used to talk about it, about the square footage and the roof area. You're an architect, there's a multiplying factor that goes up and up and up for the amount of drainage. And that's why I tied drainage to the size of the buildings. And what do we have now? We have this great big plastic bins or whatever they are in the front, in the setback, where they collect the water, and they're allowed to do that. That setback, and do we have a record of where those things are being put in? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. The next thing you know, that area sometimes it's even in the city's setback, what the city should have as a setback. So those things are very concerning if that's the only way we are doing collection of the extra water. Our setbacks used to be or still are, I think, in the absence of a stormwater drainage system. Our setbacks were our go-to for making sure that the building sat on that particular 15, 10, 20, 30, whatever, right? That's gone out the window now. If you go around and check, I wish I had one of those, the electronic things that you can, I don't. I almost thought of buying one to see how far the building is from the curb. And then within that curb, within that distance, they have put all this great big plastic to collect the water. I'm very frustrated by this. I don't want to go on like this because I want it to be a positive input that I can give you, but that's frustrating to people.
Well, I think one of the we brought in the tree canopy, which has been on our charter, and we discovered that there's quite a trove of comments about trees from the strike force, and I tried to kind of pull those out. There's a lot of support for, as Debbie said, strengthening the tree ordinance, and potentially it could help mitigate a lot of the impacts that are happening from building. So trees go a long way to, maintaining privacy and things like that. So I just wonder if anybody wants to contribute to that conversation about should Rollingwood maybe have a plan to plant more trees? I think.
I have something to say about that. Because what I notice is that people that are moving or looking to move. Oh, Sandra Farrell. So 3223 Park Hills Drive, next to the. Oh, you do? Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, people, when they come and look here, they go, oh, we love Rollingwood. We love the trees. And then the first thing they do, they mow down every tree. Doesn't matter if it's a heritage oak. We had across the street, catty-cornered from us, about 5 heritage oaks on the side of their yard. They mowed them all down. I say they, it's the builder. It was a spec home, and it's the builder that did it. So, I mean, they love it, and we love it, but we're not protecting it. And I think we need to tighten up a little bit on what they can and can't do. To say, okay, plant 3 smaller trees. Well, big deal, you know. That's no comparison to what we had. And we can't just grow it back, you know. We need to preserve what we have. And the next thing that is on my radar is the height of the foundations of some of these houses. And the one on Pleasant and Nixon, it's ridiculous. If I lived next door to that, I would totally feel like my property would be decreased in value because it has no privacy. And I don't know how that got allowed because, you know, as far as height goes, where are they counting the start of it? At the top of the cement foundation or at the bottom? Now, so I think we need to tighten that up. And the other thing is, like the house next door to me at 3223 Park Hills, they dug out, they took 25. That's my address.
Don't out yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, he used the creek bed as, you know, the lower and higher number and took the average. Well, that was an extenuating circumstance. He shouldn't have been allowed to do that. And now, I don't know if anybody has approved what he's done on this. Looks like something from the Roman times of an aquifer that's coming down. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work or not. But that's what he's putting in. And to speak about the plastic in the front yard, so he has, right now, a big plastic unit with pipes coming out. And I don't know if he's going to be able to cover it up or not, because it is sticking out pretty far above grade level. So I don't know if he's going to build a high retaining wall around it and then fill it in, but it's going to look odd because his yard's going to be this elevation and then that elevation, if that's what he does. I don't know. But, so the height, the foundation, and I really think what you said earlier, if we tighten up about these trees a little bit, that may go a long way. Oh, and the other thing is the setbacks of the awnings. So not only does he have his house on top of us, he's got an awning too, you know. And so, I mean, he's right outside Tom's window. I mean, they're just right there. I just don't think that people should be allowed to build lot line to lot line, and that's what they're doing. And, you know, they say, oh, we have to maximize our lot. Who really needs a house that big? You know, I mean, I don't know.
We
But
invite
if-
you to, you know, we had posted the emails that we had gotten,
Mhm.
you know, they're in our site now,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to invite you to look for a developer in there.
I did.
Did
I
you see
read
that
it.
one?
Yes.
It's a good note. You know, it's a good note.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It says a
Oh
lot of
yeah, he
stuff.
says he didn't realize that that house was going to look like that.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, well, I did ask him not to build it so big. Because I saw the plans and I thought it looked huge.
What was interesting was, what he actually said was, it was the fault of the Rollingwood Code, he said, allowed him to do that. So
Well,
he
if that's the
urged us
truth, then we have to
change
do
it
something
because
about the
apparently
code.
He didn't understand what was coming.
It's
Well,
really,
Additionally, though, you referenced that he used a point in the creek that you believe is not an appropriate low point.
Right.
And this brings me back to something I said at the last meeting, which is, and I don't know how we address this, but there is this asymmetrical relationship between the person who is developing the lot, whether it's a builder or a person who's building a new home, and they are intently focused on what they want to put on that lot. On the other side, we have the city, which is more amorphous and less focused. There are a number of people who have to interact with each other and determine what is code and what isn't, and that seems to be a real loose network. The focus on the two sides are very different. The intensity that people approach getting the building built or approved is much harder on the builder's side than on the city side, and I don't know what we need to do about making sure that we tighten that up and have enforcement of the rules that we do generate.
I agree with enforcement, totally. You know, they just want forgiveness and they build what they want to build.
Right, ask for forgiveness.
Ask for forgiveness.
not permission.
You know, we'll just go get a variance or
But
whatever.
on the building height specifically, like I would.
Can I get y'all to?
Oh.
it would be good.
You
You want it to.
No, no.
Go ahead.
Great if we could be able to pass a mic around. You can
My
make it.
apologies. Okay, so on the building height, I think the intent or the spirit of it 20 years ago worked. It doesn't work today. So it needs to get defined. The verbiage isn't clear. Building envelope, is it air conditioned? Is it foundation patio? It's not defined. I'd love to see it tightened up. I'd love to see, I think at one of the meetings, the native ground level is taken prior to any demolition, so that can be determined, and then I think that the intent or the spirit of the building height needs to be enforced, so that it doesn't get out of hand. So just be better defined. Whether people want that to go down in height, I know that was discussed. I think 35 is reasonable. It's just when it gets to the foundation gets 10 feet out of the ground or more, and that's your starting point or whatnot. But I think that's what I wanted. And I love the floor area ratio, because it makes the house fit the lot. It doesn't, it keeps things kind of in check. And I know that the majority of homes fall within a certain distribution, and that should be the set point. And you should have a max FAR ratio that you don't exceed, depending on the lot size.
I'm sorry, that's your name.
Oh, Deborah Arno, 304 Inwood.
It makes it a lot easier for. Let me kind of give a little bit of history on some of these that might have. Our height area that we came up with, which I guess was done in 2004, does that sound right? Was kind of a compromise. It wasn't any, before that it was 30 feet. And, but at the time, the houses that we had built in Rollingwood had gable roofs. So that the height was not, that was a high point of a gable roof. Now we're dealing with flat roofs that you get more of an impact that comes from that. The starting point of our elevation that occurred in that was it was a compromise. Rollingwood has tried over the many years to kind of be considerate of our property owners' rights and as well as our neighbors' rights to come up with ways that and not to stifle innovation when it came to design. So I'm proud of our city for doing that, because I think that is a proper thing to do. One of the problems that we had, and Nikki, I'm going to ask you if you jump in if I'm wrong on this, or Brooke, I believe you were involved in this too. When we adopted one of the variations of the Universal Building Code, they had a different definition of ground zero, if you would, than what was in our code. Now, we adopted that, and the Universal Building Code, how big is that? Is that a, yeah, no, I'm not sure that very many of us read that for that was adopted, but it got adopted. Each change that comes in. So we had a different, inadvertently, I think, we had a potential code change that allowed some additional footage that we might not have really anticipated to come in.
Just to be clear, because I want to understand this well, is what you're saying is that our current means for measuring building height and establishing what the maximum is came out of that International Building Code in 2004?
There was a controversy about where we started. That has since been, I believe, corrected, or being corrected in our city code.
It's been, the city of Rollingwood at some point, I think 2013, adopted a definition of building height for purposes of the building code, the International Building Code. As it turns out, that definition is not used in the International Building Code, so we've never really matched the International
There was a
Building Code.
difference.
International or universal?
International.
International.
Okay.
Did I say universal?
International Code Council.
Okay, yes,
Well,
which is,
clear.
I'm Catholic.
which is, it's mandated by state law that cities use that code for electricity and wall strength and materials and things like that. It's not a, cities can still define the height of a building and setbacks and those kind of criteria. The building code addresses structural things and safety things and lighting and concrete and that sort of stuff. But we've never really matched. The building code didn't mandate the definition we have, but it was put as an amendment, local amendment to the building code, and then applied to zoning by practice. And so we have a mismatch.
So that's part of that. So the other thing I wanted to kind of ask is, a lot of comments on drainage everywhere. We currently have a drainage criteria manual, which was believe it or not, it took 20 years of effort to get the current drainage criteria manual done. Granted, it's not, may not be what everybody wanted, but that's what we were able to get at the time. One of the questions that I want us to look at and think about with our builders and everything, because builders are spending an incredible amount of money on this drainage criteria manual. Is that the most efficient use of those funds for us to do that, or is there a better way for us to utilize that money? And if there's a better way for us to do it, I'm good to go with that, to look at it. Now that's beyond my pay grade to figure out that, but I'd like to hear. I've reached out to several of our builders, and I was glad to see that. That is their number one issue, that they go, look, this is, we're wasting money on this, and I'm going, show me how we're wasting money, and I can do that. And it may be our engineering. I'm not suggesting we get away with it. I'm not suggesting we don't make it harder. But I want us to, I think one of the things we should look at is whether that's an efficient use of the funds that are being spent on that. The tree ordinance, 2004, the last time we did this, we made a recommendation to the council to do a tree ordinance. It did not pass, and we didn't have it. And I was very pleased to see, when was that, hadn't been that long.
Amy, in 2019 maybe? Amy Tilla managed.
She did, and we have a tree ordinance. And it's not, it's not again, I think we tried, I can remember at least 3 times that issue came up from 1998 to 2014 when I was mayor, that came up. And we had pitchforks, burning.
People didn't talk to each other for a while.
I mean, it was which, you know, so it was a very contentious deal. And we did have some builders that were lot owners, that weren't builders, they were lot owners, that went, well, if you're gonna do a tree ordinance, I'm gonna go cut down all my trees. And they did, they cut down every tree. So, you know, I'm not sure that was a good thing, but it was their property, and at that time they could do that, and they did it. You may recall some of that.
Oh, yeah. Pitchforks, yes.
Yeah.
This hall was full.
Yeah. So I would say that just keep in mind, this is not something that we're plowing some of the same ground we plowed before on that. Times change. Now, I will say this, several of the people that were concerned about trees have changed positions over the years. They've saw the effect of that. Drainage has been an incredibly difficult thing for us to work on in Rollingwood. Rollingwood residents typically think, hey, it's not my problem. I'm not gonna, if you got a drainage problem, go fix it. You know, and that's, unfortunately, unfortunately, that's what we deal with sometimes. But I would suggest that as we look through this, just keep in mind, we're looking for some suggestions as to how we want to go ahead and make some changes on this. Sandra, I appreciate your deal about, you know, how we replace heritage oaks. There are going to be times when to use a lot and you have a heritage oak in the middle of your lot, you're going to lose it. No smart builder is going to want to do that if they can help it, because the value of that tree is such. But that happens. And so how do we do that? Inch for inch, 2 inch, 10 inch, that's what we're trying to come up with, I think, that would help get through that deal. And, you know, but I like to expand our discussion, like on the drainage, is that to look in the fact that the drainage criteria manual does contain some provisions that says that, for instance, if you're in an area where we're doing a regional drainage, you can pay a fee as opposed to doing that on your lot. And then we are going to take that money.
I believe in 2017 I referred to those as indulgences.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Mr. Massengill didn't agree with me.
That I'm not going to argue with that. But I will say that is one consideration that we could consider as a better use of our money potentially on that. Now, does it work? Because you know, as a government, our city has to have the ability to spend that money wisely and fix the problem. We have a problem on some areas. We do, and you know, how we go about doing that is what I was asking. If you had some thoughts as you go through that, I'm not asking you to be an engineer. I'm not asking you to be an arborist, but if we have some thoughts to throw out, we could kind of go from that standpoint. So, thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so, man, I didn't plan on having this discussion about drainage. Because we don't have a, stormwater system, the train has left the station and we can't get it back. So, the attempt at the drainage ordinance, conceptually, philosophically, I think it's the best thing we can do. It's a one-by-one methodology by which we try to protect our neighbors, and, you know, collectively, you would hope that that works. But in reality, there's gonna be certain circumstances where certain storm systems or patterns, it'll overwhelm that concept of one by one. Okay, so we can't get the train back in the station, but we could maybe get it closer. And I would suggest, this is, you know, I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack for this, but when we have an existing lot that hadn't been built on, there are no, you know, you have to basically, in your build out, you need to control the water and the runoff at a rate equal or less than it did in its natural state. So with tear downs or any new projects where we're demoing an existing house and there's existing pervious coverage, my understanding that particular lot gets the benefit of that existing impervious coverage. And I'm going to suggest that we take every new project, whether demoed or an existing natural lot, and they all go back to zero. That's the only way we can kind of reel the train, the locomotive, back into the station a little bit. We'll never get that all the way back, but that would be a proactive way to maybe solve some of the sins from before.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If, considering what our geology looks like here, you know,
Yeah,
we take
we're
a shovel,
a
we take a
flat
shovel
table.
anywhere in Rollingwood,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it into the ground, you're gonna get 6 inches, you might get all the way to 11 inches deep before you hit solid rock, and then that's it.
Correct.
All right? And that's everywhere, that's the whole place. So, my question is, if you went back to ground zero, and you said, okay, that existing one-story house, we're gonna take that away, and we're gonna consider this lot just like it was, you know, pre-Rollingwood days, you know, just the original topography, what that runoff is gonna look like. You think there's a difference?
Sure.
I'm not sure there is. Because we live on effectively an impervious piece of ground. The only permeability
I
that
agree
we
with
have
that.
in Rollingwood is in the fracture systems that's through here. When you go into the valleys and the bottoms of things, you start to see the limestone fractures and so on. That's where water can seep in. But other than that, there's almost no permeability. Limestone is an impermeable, it's concrete. Limestone, concrete are pretty much the same thing, at least from a permeability standpoint. And so, I'm wondering if the entire thing has to be managed through a man-made sewer system. We just have to put that in. We gotta bite the bullet, we gotta dig up the streets, and we just have to build what has to be done as far, you know, for controlling runoff. That's what has to happen.
Then we could bury the power lines.
We could do that too. But you know, I don't know that there's any way out of this because of the rock nature that we have here.
That question is way over my head.
Okay. It wasn't meant to be, but
Well, I'm only suggesting something that, you know, we've talked about drainage here quite a bit, and there's just a little piece of a nugget of practical, something we could really do that would have some impact. Okay? And look, my last house, and I mean, you know, virtually every house I've done has had some drainage issue. And I've tried, you know, even before the ordinance, I've created drainage systems. But the last house under the ordinance, I probably spent $350,000 on, I mean, you know, you can come look, I have 3 detention ponds. I'm at the tail end of 22 acres of catchment area. And, you know, I'm kind of at the tail end of this thing. And to be honest with you, this system works beautifully, and we capture rainwater, and it doesn't figure into that equation at all. So, you know, my next door neighbor's got that much more cushion in sort of the, you know, the formula for protection as such. But, I mean, hey, I was happy to do it.
Hi, I'm Tony Henley, 2904 Hatley Drive. And I want to thank you guys for being on this committee, this strike force. I think it's really something that we've needed for quite a while. And so I'm really excited to see it. And I'm thankful for the postcard I got that will let me know about this meeting so I could come. I like the idea of the landscape vision, the lighting vision plan. I think that is something that we really need. From my personal experience, my back fence neighbor has a huge sodium vapor light that lights up the my entire yard as well as their entire yard while he plays lacrosse, hits lacrosse balls into a net every night, you know, so it's really, really bright. And so it's just affecting just the people around them. But if everybody did that, wow, that would be bad. So I think that having a lighting vision plan is very important. And also I want to consider maybe in the survey questions if we wanted to consider landscaping in our ordinances, because maybe we want to limit or prohibit the use of invasive species as people are putting in new landscapes, that they are not allowed to put in plants that are just detrimental to our area. And I do also like the construction management plan, because I drive up Wallace Drive, and sometimes when there's trucks on both sides of the street, it's very hard to pass through there. So if there was some way to force them to all park on one side of the street so that cars could pass, or if there was like emergency vehicles would have a hard time getting down that street as well sometimes when there's construction vehicles parked on both sides. So I feel like that's something that maybe permits could be issued, or some plan or policy could be put into place for that. And so I'm excited about what I see here, and I do believe that when I saw your challenges, go slow, go fast, I like the kind of the go fast part. But I also know that you have to give enough time for people to have a chance to weigh in, because what happened when I was on the park commission was we spent, a year working on a master plan, and then when it became known when they were about to pass it, then people all of a sudden acted like, oh my God, this is the first they heard of it. It was a new thing. And the pitchforks came out, right? So I think it's really important to try to get the community engaged as early as possible. So I encourage that. So thank you guys again.
Anybody else? Let me, Dave, let's just take a pause of the speaker deal and give everybody a chance to actually come up and look at our posters on this. Y'all done some borrowed work on this. I can't read it.
Put your glasses on.
Tony, I do want to mention that I think that the strike force and the survey from that gathered a ton of input, and a lot of it was related to what we're talking about, which Dave said. So I think, it's an ongoing thing that, and we're we're listening.
Around, yeah.
You're right. So no pitchforks, please.
No, not yet. That comes later.
We already got the vote.
there a way to create context for people looking for?
We're gonna leave these here.
Oh, good, 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 good.
I want to give somebody another wire on the, whatever that telephone notice is, that if you were too lazy to show up.
You can look at the agenda and it's posted on the agenda.
But is this, this is it?
Of seeing this,
Yes.
is much
This
better.
is
Much better, yes, than
This,
any.
this is so beautifully done. I have to applaud and thank
Yes,
them
yes.
because, wow.
Very, this is a lot of work.
Well, it's not, but when you look at what we have to do, because this is, really, it was in the 80s.
Yep.
Well, but like you said, tried to ordinance in 04, 05, where we ended up not only being able to have the January municipal meeting where everybody, where the Rollingwood Women's Club has the, because people were so upset. And then, or maybe that was, yeah, anyway.
But you know, say, one of the reasons that is because of social media. Oh, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Social media has a lot to do
And
with
see,
it.
I think that's still on.
And I'll tell you this, we have over 100 comments.
Oh, I know.
And the reason is because we got a lot of these comments, because people,
And say, you better comment.
because if they change the code,
You're
your
going
house
to
value
have
is gonna, is
Oh,
gonna
no, I
drop.
know
That was the negative.
That is such a suspicious at best part of it, but you just don't
But see,
understand how they can go
but see,
in.
people are using
I
it.
was, but I wanted them.
Oh, you want
No,
to-
he looks on the bright side.
It brought people out.
If it took somebody to go into the meeting,
To get people to pay attention.
I was okay with that. I know that's not good public policy, but
Gotcha. All right.
because you know, it's ridiculous.
I was really pleased that you did make that statement at the outset that, you know, almost none of our houses are totally conforming because, you know, and if you've ever lived in a neighborhood that isn't built by, what is it, Lennar Homes, where they built all of them in the same 15 days, you know what I mean? There's going to be variation. Anyway. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that we're gonna see, is the, and I read all these, the underlying is, all of it.
Well, that's what I could go with.
That has to be, that has to be, I think that's what we're coming out with, to be, everything that we do about becoming, commercial for it, is always, vision that was strengthened. And the same thing here. We have, I didn't tell people this, but we have one building that is homeless, we have on Lee and
Totally in violation.
totally in violation. They retired that. And they basically said, okay. Write me up. Okay. So, I had that come up a couple of times. The fine is $500, but I'm not going to give you a CO until the damn thing down and start over. And then it's like, okay, fine doesn't mean anything. That means something. But anyway.
Well, that's what I keep saying. And I don't I'm trying to indict city services people. I'm not trying to say that they're not doing their job. What I am saying is we have people who are like, this is my dream home, or this is happening. I'm gonna make this go. And then on the other side, you got people in the city who are doing several things at once, and it's not their priority. It's just one of their tasks. And the intensity is a mismatch, man. You know? Sure, it's okay.
It's getting there. You got it.
Residents walking away.
I love the way it is. That way you can have it.
Agenda. You can pull this up.
Now,
It doesn't do it justice.
wanting to reuse one of
We're gonna send
the
it.
things that Richard said in 2017 when we were fighting to maintain the drainage criteria
Manual,
which
oh,
I
yeah.
didn't say to Mayor Phil that indeed
Thank you.
was modified for
Thank you.
different ways that could not.
Yeah.
Even after all the years.
990.
Yeah, so some.
Oh, I didn't bring my phone.
Thanks so much.
Oh,
That's
okay.
exactly right. It needs to have, it
My husband is
needs to
we don't
It's 9.
Yeah, well, some people were saying 7:45.
And then they were either flattening us or building walls and wedges and
I think that's very nice. And we actually do come up with some recommendations.
She just said who is.
That we ought to be doing similar. We ought to do the same kind of deal. This is just the first. I'm a little.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get going.
We did better.
Yeah, I just feel good about it.
And you could see it.
Yeah.
That it exists.
Okay, Dave, hold on a second.
that's why we have all building and over Avenue E. They have to say,
That's okay.
she's a woman of real passion.
We just went there the other day.
Oh,
yeah, we go over all the time.
Let me take this one.
And that's his next
That's right, it's perfect.
I didn't know how tall.
It's about that.
But maybe.
Oh, no, it's gotta be. I'm serious.
Well, once they break it or stuff goes, we're not gonna right, no, that's what I'm saying. Oh, you will, because there won't be any windows or whatever. But it does look like it's really way taller than the 35.
From the foundation.
The hotel or somebody's house?
I was told from the beginning that we, we have a document, but it starts from the base, from the top of the foundation, that's considered the and it's
Okay, well, that's kind of like the one. Yeah, it's kind of like, they used to have the street, the streetcars in Houston used to go right up through that. That was the whole streetcar.
This is so
It's on
archaic, I really
the,
don't
on the
understand.
north side.
Trying to get this.
Yeah,
Get
but
the
aren't
official,
they?
yeah.
You need to take these measurements before you start to
About 1930s.
modify the topography of the lot.
Right, yeah, because they do have a survey before they do anything, and supposedly it is supposed to be done adequately before the house was built.
They sound delicious.
Yeah.
We don't have,
Once they get the permit, once they start building, who's actually checking the whole.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Claire, I'm sorry, Claire, Sandra, Claire.
Yeah, we're walking in the direction now. Okay, he's on Zoom. Yeah, sort of, yeah. Well, he was on Zoom.
Well, why would you watch this? I mean,
Yeah. So anyway, they are supposed to be taking it from some data point, and that's what they have to agree on. What is the data point?
Well, and if a creek is indivisible,
I know, that's what I was mentioning, is Dave just took a picture of all those stones going in to where it's next to the building. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, and somebody was saying something about some of the money at the bottom.
Well, and this brings, well, yeah, they've got a great big plastic, one, I don't know how many gallons. And it's a gallon.
But to look at the
But
heights,
you have to also then to be,
40 years
pump those out slowly, but
Way.
then you have to
Way.
enforce
Two
it.
bucks.
Who comes around and
Way
checks
different
to
place,
make
pretty
sure
run
those
down.
systems are working?
it has come a long way. We were just there, we have a very good event.
Yeah, oh, you're talking about down the creek. Yes.
With the car parking.
It's a little bit like the one over in Hubbard in,
And largely, yeah, it's really been reborn.
No.
Yeah.
That looks like something LaRosa said.
The aqueducts.
So how do we,
Would y'all,
Sit down.
no, would y'all please take some time to consider all this nice work that these people have done? And, just any recommendations that you have. Really, we don't have, I should have opened it, we don't have any dumb questions or answers that come up. You know, I'll come up with those. Y'all don't have to. And we'll, but we want to have as much input from everybody as we can.
Well, you're still accepting email. That's still.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
And this-
sure you have meetings, but I haven't sent any email.
You know what is surprising? That if this is such a hot topic, where is it?
Well, wait a minute, people mail what we're saying, there, we have over 100 emails that people have sent. And that's how
Waiting
long
to get your village forms. That always happens.
Cindy, as you know, that didn't really bother me. Cindy, you know what my favorite saying was, if I ever told you this? The hell thing. I said,
We are looking carefully, we're taking time.
This is a woman who's going to test to the veracity of your
No,
statement.
no.
So bad by us.
I would tell.
It just
Don't-
flows off.
I said, no, I
Like a
said,
drainage
I would say, you're an irritating, to live with a pro.
Oh, Sandra, you walked away from that one.
So she knows, she started. But it's true too.
yeah, so,
But my only obligation is to do the best I can do. I don't worry about everything after that.
so how do you propose we be allowed to set this stuff up or keep it up? How's that work?
I'm gonna put it right along here until they get tired of looking at it.
Any council meetings, any kind of
I
planning
don't know if there's anything in
commission?
front of, I don't, there's a city council meeting tomorrow.
Doesn't matter. People come in here all the time. When they come in, I'm gonna ask them to set it up here and just leave it, and then, we're gonna sit down and work on this.
Okay, that's good, that's good.
It's just gonna work.
Thanks, Tom.
This is in
Thanks, Tom.
Maybe we bury some kind of committee for approval of what's this.
There's some, the state of Texas doesn't really like to do things like
Oh,
that.
unless you have an HOA or.
Well, we have, like, for instance, believe it or not, we don't get to, state law does not allow us to
Not anymore. Yeah, HB 2932 or something like that.
There's two houses right by us, and nobody's coming out.
That was an issue for us on Edward. Yeah.
Why they split it that way. That
And
happened.
one of the things that I get told now,
And there's nothing we can do.
well, yes, there is.
Twice, but nothing.
The littlest,
Should be a whole business.
working on something.
And it's typically
And if, don't get you're a builder, you don't want to. If I'm a builder and I drive by my house, most of my work is there, but I see two other houses under construction working.
Dave.
Sandra, nice to meet
It's a
you.
pleasure to meet you.
Well,
Yeah.
just say
I
it's
know
a pleasure.
that, I know that you walk with Claire and all that.
See, I know you're being told, that's why it's
Is the city okay?
And I am serious, I really did like your email. You said much of the same thing right there, but the email was very good. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. You gonna yell at Tom?
Oh, just stand out in front.
So I wanna thank everybody for coming, and once again, I wanna emphasize that no decisions have been made. We appreciate the input that we got. I know a lot of people prefer to send us emails as opposed to coming in, and that's okay too, however we get it. We don't read smoke signals, so we're not gonna do that, but other than that, just any way you can think of, do it. There aren't any, really, we're not gonna be critical of any recommendations or decisions that you wanna ask us to look at. So there's no dumb questions, there's no dumb answers that you come up with, and we'll take everything under consideration. And once again, I want to thank everybody that took the time to do this. We're going to leave this here, and so I think this is a wonderful presentation, and it's the people that look at this from a standpoint of looking at the agenda are not getting the full effect of it. And I want to thank you guys for y'all's hard work.
Yes.
Wonderful work. So, if I could I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion we adjourn?
I have a motion, and we have a second, and those in favor, and there we go. We're good.
Very good.
And thank y'all again for coming. And I would ask that you make sure you tell